in the midst of a climate emergency with so many people around the world suffering so hugely, compared to something like getting involved in campaigning, it might feel a little bit kind of selfish and self-centered to just enjoy the natural world around us and the creatures in it. But maybe there's a way to do that which better reflects our faith and the need that there is, undoubtedly, to act. So to help us to explore that a bit, I'm joined by Lydia Reese, who is Conservation Advisor for A Rocha UK, the Christian organisation which works for the protection and restoration of the natural world and equips Christians and churches in the UK to care for the environment. And as part of that, A Rocha UK founded and runs Eco Church. So Lydia, it is lovely to have you with us this evening. Are you there?
Thank you for having me. I'm here. Can you see me?
I can see you and I can also hear you. And hearing the accent makes me think that the first thing I need to ask is a bit about your background. And yeah, so just tell us a bit about yourself, first of all.
Well, A Rocha is the reason I came to the UK originally. So I have a background in wildlife biology. I was working in conservation in a very demanding job in a rural area where it was very difficult for me to go to church. And I found myself missing that Christian community. And I wanted to be with other Christians who also cared about the earth. It's a bit like you were saying, Ben, about that. You sort of get a critical mass, don't you, of enthusiasm when you're with a group of people. So I was wanting that, and I thought, I'd heard of A Rocha, and I thought, oh, well, I come to the end of my contract, I'll take a few months and just go on an adventure. And I was meant to go to Peru, but the reason I didn't is a whole nother story, so I won't go into it. I ended up in the UK volunteering with one of A Rocha's partners in action, Hillfield Friary, which is down in Dorset. And it's a Franciscan community of brothers who are kind of like monks and lay people and families. And we work together on the land to care for the plants and animals that were entrusted to us. And I'm still here, and now I work for A Rocha.
And I mean, for you, has there always been a connection between faith, between your faith and the natural world? Has that connection just always been very obvious to you?
I think there has for me, but that's partly because of my age and the growing awareness of the climate crisis at sort of a pivotal point when I was a teenager. And I think I've also been around a lot of Christians who have emphasized that there is a natural connection there.
I'm not sure though. It's always a connection that Christians have found easy. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think it comes down to how people have interpreted Genesis 1 for a long time, and particularly the way I'm not a Hebrew scholar, so I don't know the original word, but the word which is often translated dominion. And people think of dominion as being in charge and being the center of everything and being able to take whatever you want from the earth. And I think I see dominion more as thinking about what would make a good ruler. If a good king or queen had dominion and they were doing a good job looking after their kingdom, what would that be like? And I don't think that we're necessarily kings and queens, but it's helpful for me thinking about how that word might be used in a different way.
No, that's really interesting. I mean, for you, it sounds like it's very much not just about being in nature, but about kind of doing in nature. I mean, I get out and enjoy it, and I'm sure that's true of many of us. But what could I be doing? What could we be doing in a more practical sense?
Yeah, I just want to speak about your point about enjoying just briefly, because one of my favorite conservationists once said that to want to look after something, you first need to know it. And I think that enjoyment piece, sometimes we can feel quite selfish and like, oh, I live in a beautiful place, but lots of other people don't live in a beautiful place. But living in a beautiful place makes you passionate about wanting to care for it and for other people to have the same experience and for people, your children and grandchildren coming after you to be able to enjoy it too. So I don't blame you for enjoying it, and I want to encourage lots of people to enjoy it. Um, Speaking about nurturing, though, I think also the enjoyment leads very naturally into wanting to do something practical yourself. I think campaigning is so important, and it's that sort of necessary third piece. But the looking after yourself, the nurturing, is your own personal connection there. And I think there's loads of different ways that people can do small things that actually do make a difference when they all add up.
Wonderful. And what sort of an impact do you think being involved in practical conservation activity can actually have on our faith?
Hmm. Um, I think, well, I think when I think back to when I was in the States working very hard and not connected to a Christian community, um, I felt like I definitely was still a Christian and I definitely still had a connection to God, but I wasn't growing in my faith in the way that I would in a Christian community. And I think that if we it's that critical mass thing again, that when we're in a community, when we're being pushed to grow in our faith by other people, then there's something really beautiful about that.
So doing conservation, practical things with others actually feeds us in all kinds of ways. So just before I let you go, and we do need to move on, but just give us a couple of tips about where to begin if we want to get involved in more practical ways in conservation.
The first thing I would say is let go of some of your expectations about tidiness. Because when we start to let nature do its thing, we often see insect life burgeoning and birds coming to feed on those insects and all sorts of things. That's how the natural system hangs together. And when we're out there with our scissors getting our grass even, then nature doesn't have a chance to do that. So I guess embrace mess, embrace untidiness. And the other thing I would say is that there's loads of organizations, which I'm sure are local to you all, which are doing conservation work. And even if it's not a Christian organization, you might think about getting a group together from your church who could go as a group, as a representative group from your church to work with a secular organization like a wildlife trust or Friends of the Earth, which is a great witness to non-Christians that this is something Christians care about. And just on the A Rocha side of things, as I mentioned before, I came over to this country to volunteer with one of the Partners in Action, and A Rocha has Partners in Action all over the UK, and A Rocha also has 2 nature reserves, one in central London in Southall and one in Essex, and they're always looking for volunteers.